You know, there's a certain curious shimmer in the air whenever we speak of genius, as if we're summoning some enchanted creature that slips in and out of the forest of consciousness. And people tend to imagine genius the way they imagine lightning sudden, violent, belonging only to the sky. But I've often thought that genius is closer to water. It flows through everything, moves quietly, reshapes the earth, not by force but by patience, and appears wherever conditions allow it to gather. So when I say there is a mind code, a kind of ancient rhythm, a pulse that unlocks a hidden genius in every so-called predator, I don't mean something dramatic or sinister. I mean something simple, something woven into the fabric of life itself. And perhaps in this moment, yes, right now you are beginning to feel it. There is a marvelous paradox we often miss. Even the word predator makes us tense, as though we're entering a jungle where teeth glisten and danger prowls. But I want you to imagine this instead: a tiger sitting in tall grass, remarkably still, fully alive, not in a hurry to prove anything, not burdened by a sense of guilt or virtue, but simply tuned into the music of the moment. That is not brutality. That's alignment. That is presence. And in some strange, cosmic way, the presence is the same essence that shines through artists, philosophers, monks, and mystics. The predator is not a villain. It is a mirror held up to the raw intelligence of nature. What I call the mind code is nothing more and nothing less than the ability to fall so deeply into the present that there is no friction between thought and action. When a river moves, it doesn't deliberate. It doesn't confer with moral committees or consult a spreadsheet. It simply flows. And when you watch a wolf track its path through a snowy forest, when you're not seeing calculation, you're seeing intuition, so refined that calculation becomes unnecessary. What looks like instinct is actually a form of genius, the genius of being utterly unconflicted with oneself. You see, human beings are the only creatures who doubt their own nature, who argue with their own impulses, who split themselves into dozens of little psychological factions and then try to run a government of the self, and it's terribly inefficient. You know what it's like, the cabinet meetings in the head? The ministers of fear and desire, ambition and shame, pride and insecurity, all shouting over one another, trying to steer the ship. Meanwhile, deep inside you, there is a quiet voice, a voice older than the stars, saying, "Be like the wind, be like the water, let yourself move." Every so-called predator in the natural world has mastered this, not by thinking, but by dissolving the thinker. And that, my friend, is the mind code. The moment when you stop trying to be a person and instead become an expression of life. You see, the tiger doesn't wake up anxious about whether it's being tiger enough. The hawk doesn't rehearse its hunting technique in front of the mirror. The snake doesn't attend motivational seminars hosted by other snakes. They simply embody what they are. There is no psychological residue, and in that effortless state of being, they unlock a form of intelligence that humans often lose because we burden ourselves with too much self. It's a marvelous joke, really. The universe designed human consciousness with such sophistication that we can imagine ourselves separate from it. We can get lost in hallways of identity, wandering from one room to another, desperately searching for the one that has a sign reading, "This is who you really are." But the door never exists, because the whole house is you, and you are the house. And even that metaphor fails, because you are also the space in which the house appears. The predators simply never fall for the gag. They stay close to the pulse, to the breath, to the sensation of life living through them. And if you listen closely right now, As you sit here, breathing, you can begin to hear that same pulse within yourself. It's like a drumbeat vibrating beneath the chatter of the mind. It's quiet and steady, ancient. It is the sense that you are not merely a person playing a role, but a moment of the universe expressing itself, taking form the way a wave takes form on the surface of an ocean. The wave never doubts its shape, never fears its collapse, because it knows it is the ocean, and to rise and fall is the essence of its being. This is the genius of the predator, the genius of those who do not resist their own nature. Now, I'm not telling you to become dangerous. I'm telling you to become real. There is a sharpness in authenticity, a clarity that feels predatory only because it cuts through illusion. Most people walk through life carrying enormous weights of should and shouldn't, expectations inherited from parents, teachers, cultures, traditions, religions, all piled onto their shoulders. They walk bent, curved, trying to meet standards no one remembers setting. Meanwhile, the tiger is somewhere in the forest, laughing, or at least I like to imagine it laughs, because it knows that life never asks you to be anything other than what you already are. To unlock this mind code, you don't need to sharpen your teeth or train your reflexes. You need to loosen your grip. You need to soften. You need to relax into the flow of sensations, thoughts, and moments that arise and fall away endlessly. And when you do, you'll notice something extraordinary. There is a genius that emerges, but it's not yours in the personal sense. It belongs to the whole. It's the same intelligence that tells the seed how to unfold into a tree, the same intelligence that choreographs birds into flight patterns, the same intelligence that whispers to each wave when it's time to crest and when it's time to return home. The predator is not clever. It is empty, empty of hesitation, doubt, self-betrayal. And because it is empty, it is free. And because it is free, it is precise. And because it is precise, it appears genius. But its genius is nothing other than the fluid motion of life unburdened by psychological noise. And perhaps the most beautiful thing I can tell you is this: the same emptiness exists inside you, not a void of despair, but a spaciousness so boundless that every thought floats through it like a leaf on a river. When you stop clinging to the leaf, when you stop trying to steer the river, you discover that your life already knows where it wants to go. And it moves with an elegance you've never noticed because you've been too busy narrating it. The mind code is simply the end of narration, the beginning of experience. You see, when we talk about predators, people often imagine this cold, sharp, calculating creature with eyes glowing in the dark. But that's a very Hollywood interpretation of nature, a kind of dramatization created by minds that can't quite grasp the serenity that lives within intensity. I want you to picture something quieter, a panther walking at dawn, dew on the leaves, its muscles moving like slow liquid fire beneath the skin. There is nothing frantic, nothing overthought. It is pure economy of motion. It is art without an artist, and yet somehow absolutely artistic. This is the dimension where genius hides, not in the struggle, not in the concept, but in the absence of division. When the panther moves, the universe is moving. The forest reacts, the air shifts, gravity sings around its body. Everything participates in this single, unbroken action. And when you see that, truly see it, you begin to understand that the predator is not superior because it dominates, but because it harmonizes. It moves in tune with the totality of existence, not against it. It is the music of the present. You and I, however, have the remarkable ability to fall out of tune with ourselves. We imagine that we should be something different than what we are: cleverer, stronger, more successful, more impressive. So we tighten, we overthink, we stumble, and the more tightly we cling to the idea of who we should be, the more distant we grow from the effortless wisdom that lives beneath the surface. It's as though the mind becomes a tangle of vines around a clear pond. The water is still there, perfectly reflective, but you cannot see it because you've allowed too many layers of thought to grow wild atop it. The predator's genius lies in its refusal to divide itself. It does not ask, "Is this the right moment?" It feels the moment. It does not say, "Shall I be brave today?" It simply moves. There is no actor in its action. And that, strangely enough, is the very essence of Zen. The archer in Zen does not try to shoot the arrow. The arrow shoots itself. The bow draws itself. The target and the shooter and the breath are not separate. They are part of the same event. This is why, in the old stories, a Zen master laughs when the student asks how to achieve enlightenment. The master knows that the question itself is the obstacle. You can't become what you already are. You can only stop pretending to be something else. The predator never pretends. That is why it appears powerful. Its power comes not from force, but from unself-conscious alignment. And you may feel, as you listen to this, a strange stirring inside you, like something ancient is slowly waking up. Not aggression, but clarity. Not violence, but presence. The predator in you is not some dark, dangerous creature lurking beneath your polite exterior. It is simply the part of you that knows how to act without hesitation, how to see without distortion, how to trust without explanation. There is a marvelous freedom in this. When you dissolve the need to justify your existence, you begin to breathe differently. Your shoulders soften, your eyes sharpen. The world seems a little more alive, as if every object is communicating with you through hidden vibrations. You begin to sense the difference between acting from fear and moving from flow. Fear is rigid, flow is fluid. Fear contracts, flow expands. Every predator moves from expansion, the widening of attention, the stretching of awareness, the fusion between the watcher and the watched. There is a spaciousness in the predator's mind, a silence that hums like a low cosmic chord. And in that silence, every detail becomes luminous. The way a leaf trembles, the sound of a footstep breaking a twig, the faint shift of wind direction, all of these are not separate stimuli, but part of the same symphony. You possess the same capacity. It is simply covered by years of mental noise. The mind code is not a technique you learn. It is a remembering, a return, a coming home to what you've always known but forgotten under the weight of modern living. In this remembering, something softens inside you, and something else sharpens. It is as if the whole world focuses itself through your eyes. Things become simpler, more direct, more immediate, and that immediacy is where genius blooms. Because genius is not complexity, it is clarity. The tiger is not brilliant because it runs algorithms. Its brilliance lies in how unburdened it is by the nonsense of psychological chatter. Human beings sometimes mistake confusion for sophistication. We build elaborate explanations for simple truths, but nature never bothers with explanation. It functions, it dances. The genius hidden in every predator is the genius of pure participation. Imagine the way a fish moves through water, the ease, the seamlessness, the way its body responds instantly to the subtlest currents. It is being acted upon and acting at the same time. It is the dance of reciprocity. And you, too, are always in this dance, even when you forget. You breathe because the world breathes you. You think because thoughts arise in the same way clouds form in the sky spontaneously. Without your permission, the mind code unlocks the recognition that you are not a separate thinker trying to direct the show. You are the show. You are the movement itself. When a predator leaps, nothing inside it says, "I hope this works." The leap happens because the leap is the only thing that could have happened in that exact moment. That is why it feels so precise, so fearless, so uncanny. Human genius emerges in exactly the same way. When an artist paints, the brush seems to move on its own. When a dancer spins, the body seems to transcend the idea of effort. When a musician enters the zone, the music plays through them like wind through a flute. Genius is not a personal achievement. It is a state of non-resistance. And perhaps this is the part that challenges people the most. The predator's genius is rooted in emptiness, not emotional emptiness, but spaciousness, freedom from self-interference, a clearing in the mind where intuition moves like light. When your mind becomes spacious, actions arise without friction. You don't force clarity. Clarity emerges. You don't chase insight, insight blossoms. You don't create genius, genius flows. This is why the Zen masters say, when the mind is like water, everything becomes reflected without distortion. The predator lives this truth instinctively, and you can live it too. Not by striving, but by relaxing into your own nature, by noticing that behind every tension is a breath waiting to be released. Behind every thought is a silence deeper than the thought. Behind every fear is a trust that has never left you. To tap into this code, you might simply sit and feel your breath, not manipulate it, not analyze it, just feel it. The breath breathes itself. The moment perceives itself, and suddenly there is no you breathing, there is only breath. No you thinking, only thoughts floating like clouds across the sky of awareness. The separation dissolves, and in that dissolution, something awakens. The same something that awakens in the wolf, the hawk, the lion, the snake, a presence that needs no approval, not permission, no applause, a silent genius, a natural intelligence, a way of being that is both fierce and gentle, powerful and relaxed, alert and at ease, a paradox. Yes, but every truth worth discovering is a paradox. And as you settle into this realization, you may begin to understand something profound. The predator's genius is not about dominance. It's about alignment. It is the art of being completely yourself, without hesitation, without fragmentation, without apology. And perhaps the most curious thing happens when you begin to taste this alignment for the first time. You start noticing how much of your suffering came not from the world, but from the way you resisted the world. You were like a river that suddenly tried to flow upstream, believing that effort alone could overpower the current of life. But predators they never resist the river. They become the river. They let the terrain shape them. Let the changing wind whisper information through their fur. Let the forest be their teacher. They listen so completely that listening becomes indistinguishable from acting. There is a marvelous stillness in such creatures. Not the stillness of inertia, but the stillness of pure awareness. Have you noticed how a cat can sit for what seems like hours, unmoving, staring not at anything in particular, but at everything at once? It is not bored. It is not waiting. It is participating. It is dissolved into the moment. Body relaxed, yet ready. Mind empty yet luminous. And in that emptiness lies the seed of all action. Stillness is not the opposite of movement, it is movement's origin. If you allow yourself to fall into that kind of stillness, you may discover that your life feels less like something you're controlling and more like something you're surfing. Surfers do not command the ocean. They do not argue with waves or ask them to behave differently. They simply tune themselves to the rhythm of forces much larger than they are. And in doing so, they become graceful. They become free. And this is precisely the kind of freedom the predator embodies. The freedom that arises when you stop trying to bend the world to your will and instead let your will align with the world. The mind code is not domination, it is surrender. But not the surrender of defeat, the surrender of understanding. To realize that the universe is not something outside you. To realize that you are part of the same unfolding that moves planets, that opens flowers in spring, that draws tides across the shores. And when this recognition sinks into your bones, you begin to move differently. You stop striving to be impressive because you understand that impressiveness is just a side effect of authenticity. You stop chasing validation because you become deeply intimate with your own existence. The predator knows this intimacy instinctively. Watch a wolf drink from a stream. It is not thinking about the next hunt, not worrying about what the other wolves think of its posture, not calculating how to appear noble or dangerous. It simply drinks. It allows the cold water to pass through it. The moment is complete. The mind code is simply the art of completing every moment without dragging the next 10 moments into it. But we human beings love dragging moments around like heavy luggage. We replay the past, pre-play the future, and rarely inhabit the only place where life actually unfolds, the now. And because of this, we miss the quiet genius humming beneath every breath. Genius isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or grand speeches. It whispers, it nudges, it emerges in the small spaces between thoughts. The space is so often filled with noise. If you sit quietly and let that noise soften, you'll notice a strange thing beneath all your ambitions and fears, beneath your self-images and your doubts. There is a space that feels predatory. Not aggressive, but sharp. Not violent, but awake. A presence that watches without judgment, moves without hesitation, acts without inner conflict. This presence is what ancient sages called the original mind, the face you had before you were born, the awareness that predates every identity you've ever worn. The predator simply never forgets this face, and you too can remember it. Not by effort. Effort is just the ego trying to polish itself, but by relaxing into the awareness that is already here. Try, for a moment, to notice the sensation of your breath without trying to breathe. Notice the hum of the room without trying to listen. Notice your presence without trying to be present. In this gentle, effortless noticing, the mind code begins to reveal itself. There is no doer. There is only doing, no thinker, only thought, no you, only this. And strange as it may sound, this dissolution does not erase you. It liberates you. Because what you lose is not your true self, but the false one, the one made of stories, of anxieties, of rehearsed performances. The predator has no such stories. That is why it seems so fearless. Fear is the tension between what is and what you think should be. The predator simply lives what is. You might say it flows like water, burns like fire, moves like wind, and you would not be wrong. Because every creature expresses the Tao in its own way. And you, too, are an expression of the Tao, though you might have forgotten. The mind code is the remembering. When you stop interfering with yourself, you begin to see the world not as an opponent but as a partner. Everything becomes a teacher. Every sound becomes a message. Even your own heartbeat becomes a drumbeat, syncing you with the pulse of existence. And in that synchronization, something beautiful happens. Your actions begin to feel inevitable, not forced, not planned, not controlled, inevitable. Like the way a tree inevitably leans towards sunlight, like the way waves inevitably return to the shore, like the way seasons shift without asking permission. When your inner resistance dissolves, your life begins to unfold with this same sense of inevitability, as though you are watching yourself move. Yet you are also the movement. This is the genius hidden in every predator, the intelligence of inevitability, and the more deeply you feel it, the more your life becomes a kind of dance, a quiet, fluid, unself-conscious dance that does not demand applause, because the dancer and the dance are one. Even your failures become part of the choreography. Even your mistakes move with elegance. The universe does not penalize you for missteps, it incorporates them. The predator does not mourn a failed leap, it adapts. It continues. It flows. And you may notice a subtle shift happening inside you right now. The part of you that constantly judges yourself is loosening its grip. The part that fears being wrong, being slow, being inadequate, those parts are softening, dissolving like mist in sunlight. In their place, a quiet confidence arises, not the confidence of ego, but of essence. The confidence of something that does not need to justify its existence. This confidence is the heartbeat of the mind code. It is the realization that you are not a fragile entity at war with life, but a manifestation of life itself. And once you know this, not intellectually, but experientially, the world no longer feels hostile. It feels intimate, alive, alive through you, as you, within you. The predator has always lived in this intimacy, and so have you. You just forgot. But in this moment, you are remembering, and what a delightful thing it is to remember, not as a task, not as an obligation, but as a kind of cosmic joke finally landing in your lap. You see, and the universe has always been nudging you with a gentle elbow, whispering, relax. Dear one, you are part of the whole performance. But you, like so many of us, believed that life was an exam, or an audition, or some great competition in which everyone is secretly comparing scores behind your back. And because of that belief, you tightened, you tried, you strained, you forgot the fluidity you were born with. You forgot the natural brilliance that unfolds when you stop trying to shine. This mind code, the genius hidden in every predator, is simply the genius of not trying to be genius. It's the intelligence that flows when you step aside and allow awareness to breathe through you. When a wolf runs, it doesn't recite affirmations. When a falcon dives, it doesn't visualize success. The moment is so total, so verein, so complete, that there is no space for self-consciousness. And without self-consciousness, there is no hesitation. Without hesitation, there is no fragmentation. Without fragmentation, there is this exquisite sense of being carried by the universe. Most people imagine predators as creatures of violence, but the violence is not where their genius lies. Their genius lies in precision. Precision born, not of thought, but of presence. Presence so complete that action flows from the entire organism, not from a divided mind. This is why a lion moving across a field appears like a poem in motion. And why, strangely enough, a human being acting from that same state seems radiant, charismatic, luminous, even if they don't know what they're doing. Because charisma is not charm, it is clarity. And clarity emerges when the mind becomes as smooth as a mirror. You can almost feel it right now, can't you? The subtle shift as you listen, the gentle loosening, The sense that all your inner tensions are slowly melting, like snow under a warm sun. This melting is the beginning of the mind code awakening in you. It is the moment the false self begins to dissolve, revealing the vast awareness beneath it, an awareness as ancient as the mountains, as playful as the wind, as deep as the ocean. You may have noticed that predators spend a great deal of time resting. Lions sleep more than they hunt. Cats lounge more than they leap. Hawks perch for long, unbothered stretches of time. And this resting is not laziness. It is attunement. A predator is not waiting. It is listening. Not planning. Simply being. It lets the world come to it. It lets sensation rise and fall without interference. This resting is the womb of clarity. It is the soil where genius grows. Human beings, on the other hand, rarely rest in this way. We collapse. Yes, but collapse is not rest. Collapse is the body revolting against the mind. True rest is alert, relaxation, the softness of a mind that trusts life enough to stop grabbing every moment by the throat. It's the relaxation of a wave after it crashes, the way it sighs back into the sea, effortlessly resuming its formless origin. If you can learn to rest like this, to let awareness settle, you will unlock a quality of perception so refined it borders on magic. Suddenly, you begin to sense the intention behind movement, the tone behind words, the energy behind events. You become less entangled in stories and more attuned to the pulse underneath them. It's as though you're hearing the music behind the world for the first time. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. The predator hears it always. There is a delightful paradox here. The more deeply you rest, the more powerfully you act. Because action arising from stillness is laser sharp, uncluttered by self-doubt or overthinking. It is the same with rivers. A slow river has the power to carve canyons. A still lake can reflect the sky with perfect clarity. So too can a still mind carve through illusion, reflect truth, and act with natural brilliance. This is the genius of predators, effortless readiness, not the readiness of anxiety, not the readiness of a soldier waiting for attack, but the readiness of a dancer before the music begins loose, alive, listening, amused. And the moment the rhythm shifts, the body moves without asking for permission. Have you ever noticed how much life moves without your involvement? Your heart beats without your assistance. Your hair grows without your management. The earth spins without your consultation. And yet, when it comes to decisions, you tighten up as if the universe might collapse if you make the wrong one. The predator has no such illusion of control. It moves because movement is happening through it. You, too, you can move this way. When you see that your personal will is not separate from the universal flow. This is why, in the deepest teachings of Taoism, they say, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. It sounds paradoxical, but only because we've been trained to think of action as effort. In truth, the most profound actions in nature are effortless. Flowers open without struggle. Stars burn without intention. Predators move with elegance, not because they try, but because they trust the intelligence that animates them. And that is the real code. Trust so complete that you stop fighting your own nature. Trust so deep that you stop narrating your life and allow life to live itself. Trust so intimate that the boundaries between you and the world begin to blur. Then fade, then vanish entirely. When that happens, you don't become a predator in the conventional sense. You become life. You become awareness. You become the rhythm beneath the surface of things, the silent force that guides movement. Your actions become less personal and more universal. You begin to sense that every word you speak is spoken by the universe through you. Every step you take is taken by life itself. Every breath you inhale is the earth breathing you in return. You become, in the most surprising way, harmless and powerful at once. Harmless because you no longer act from ego. Powerful because you act from presence. This is the paradoxical essence of all true predators. They do not cause unnecessary harm because they are not lost in the delusion of me versus you. They act only when the moment calls for it. And when the moment doesn't, they rest. Imagine how different human life would be if we followed that rhythm, acting only from necessity, resting fully when resting, moving fully when moving, trusting fully when uncertain. You may begin to sense this rhythm inside you now. A quiet, ancient beat. It is older than your name, older than your memories, older than your species. It is the beat of awareness, the pulse of life, the hum of the universe experiencing itself through your form. And the more you relax into it, the more your actions align with it. You begin to act with the same natural genius found in every predator, the genius of presence, precision, silence, and flow. And perhaps the simplest, most beautiful realization is this: the predator's mind code is not about power over others. It is about power within yourself. The power to be unshaken by noise, the power to act without hesitation, the power to rest without guilt, the power to move like a wave, breathe like a forest, and see like awareness itself. And all of this, all of it is already within you. And here, as we drift into the final stretch of this peculiar exploration together, I feel compelled to tell you a secret, not because it is hidden, but because it is so obvious that most people overlook it. The way one overlooks the space between breaths or the silence between musical notes. The secret is that the genius we attribute to predators is not exclusive to them. It is the genius of life itself. And because you are life, because you are woven from the same cosmic fabric, you already possess it. You have never lacked it. You have only forgotten how to feel it. You've been taught to fear your own depth, to distrust your own instincts, to place your awareness into the hands of ideas, concepts, and borrowed rules. And in doing so, you've become like a river that tries to follow a straight line, rigid, constrained, confused, when the world bends in ways you cannot predict. But rivers were not born for straight lines. They curve, they swirl, they expand, they collapse into waterfalls. They vanish underground only to reappear miles away. The river never apologizes for changing direction. It simply flows. This flexible intelligence, this genius, is the essence of the predator's mind. It is also your essence. If only you allow it to surface, you can almost feel it now, can't you? That stirring beneath your chest, like a wind rising through the branches of your inner forest, a certain sharpness in your awareness, not the sharpness of tension, but the sharpness of clarity, a kind of heightened listening, as though the entire universe is leaning in toward you, waiting to see if you will finally hear what it has been whispering since the moment you arrived in this body. The predator hears it always. The whisper says, stop trying to manage life. Let life move you. And once you hear this, truly hear it, all your frantic efforts to control the uncontrollable begin to loosen. You start noticing the hilarious absurdity of trying to predict the future, of trying to win in a game where there is no scoreboard, no referee, no finish line. You laugh. Perhaps the way Zen monks laugh when someone asks for the meaning of life, Because once you understand that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a dance to be danced, the pressure dissolves, and in the dissolution, your natural brilliance begins to glow. It has always been there, like embers waiting for a breath of wind. The predator's mind is not clever. That's the great twist. It is not strategic in the way humans try to be strategic. It does not run simulations or envision worst-case scenarios. It simply perceives with totality. It embodies a kind of honest intelligence, the intelligence of a creature that trusts its senses, trusts its instincts, trusts the moment so deeply that it merges with it. There is no separation between the hunter and the hunted by it, the watcher and the watched, the action and the awareness. And when you enter that space, even for a moment, you, too, become seamless, you become fluid, you become a participant in the great cosmic choreography rather than a spectator clinging desperately to your seat. Humans suffer because we believe ourselves to be separate. Predators thrive because they never fall for that illusion. But you don't have to either. Imagine, just for a moment, living as if everything you needed was already folded into the present moment, not in a mystical sense, but in a profoundly practical one. Imagine moving through life with the same quiet confidence as a hawk gliding on wind currents. Not because it controls the wind, but because it knows how to ride it. Imagine acting from a place where thought follows awareness rather than dominating it, where you do not chase decisions but allow the next step to reveal itself. This is not fantasy. This is your nature. And perhaps the most touching part of this entire journey is the realization that you do not need to become someone else to unlock this genius. You do not need to train your mind to be predatory. You simply need to lighten the burden you've placed on your own shoulders. You need to stop interrupting yourself. You need to stop gripping the steering wheel of your life with such white-knuckled determination. The universe does not need your approval to move. It only needs your willingness to stop resisting. When resistance drops, genius rises, it rises effortlessly, like a bubble surfacing from the deep, like laughter escaping your lips without permission. You begin to speak in ways that surprise even you. You begin to act with a sense of inevitability, as though every moment has been rehearsed by life itself. And in a sense, it has all of history, all of evolution. All of the universe's experiments have converged into this very instant in which you are hearing these words. You are not a mistake. You are not an accident. You are a continuation of billions of years of intelligence flowing through a form that calls itself I. And yet, the moment you look closely, the I begins to soften. It becomes porous. You start to sense that the one who watches your thoughts is not the character in your story, but the space in which the story appears. Awareness itself, and awareness is never afraid. Awareness is never confused. Awareness simply is like the sky. The clouds of emotion come and go. The storms of thought arrive and leave. But awareness remains open, unchanged, infinite. This infinite awareness is the true predator mind, not because it hunts, but because it sees reality without distortion. It sees movement without narrative. It sees life without the filters of judgment, expectation, or fear. And when you see like this, even for a breath, you unlock the same genius that guides every creature in the wild. A lion may be fierce, but its fierceness comes from peace. A hawk may be deadly, but its deadliness comes from clarity. A wolf may be relentless, but its relentlessness comes from flow. And you, too, can be fierce in your authenticity, clear in your perception, relentless in your presence, not by trying, but by remembering. The mind code is not something you activate. It is something you stop suppressing It is the natural rhythm of your being when you stop getting in your own way. It is the intelligence of life moving through you when the ego finally steps aside. It is the ease of knowing that nothing real can ever be threatened and nothing unreal needs protecting. It is the spaciousness that opens when you realize you do not need to micromanage your existence. And once this realization lands deeply, viscerally, undeniably something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel at home in the universe, not as a visitor, not as an outsider, not as a fragile consciousness struggling to survive, but as a wave belonging to the ocean, a leaf belonging to the wind, a flame belonging to the fire. Life does not happen to you. Life happens as you, and in that recognition, the predator, the sage, the artist, the mystic, the child, the wind, the water all become one movement, one rhythm, one awareness expressing itself in infinite forms. This is the genius hidden in the predator. This is the genius hidden in you. This is the mind code of existence itself. And now that you've remembered it, not merely understood it, but felt it, you will never be quite the same. Because the moment you awaken to the intelligence beneath your thoughts, to the flow beneath your decisions, to the awareness beneath your identity, you become unshakable in the most gentle way imaginable. You become fluid, effortless, alive in a way that makes every step feel like a whisper from the universe saying, yes, this way. You become a living expression of the Tao, a movement of pure clarity, a consciousness that no longer doubts its own origin. And perhaps if you listen closely, you can hear the universe laughing softly with you now. Not at you, with you, because you finally got the joke. The simplest joke, the oldest joke. You were never separate. You were never incomplete. You were never without this genius. You simply forgot. And now you remember